Okay, let's just start off with the basics then. Okay, so there are kind of three different types of leases. I do primarily office, so we deal with full service gross leases. So for the standard office user, you are going to get a full service gross lease. That means that your asking rate or the base rent, everything is included in that. Maintenance, utilities, and insurance. So most standard office users are going to be in a full service gross scenario. That's number one. Number two is modified gross. There are some office parks where they carve out, it's called a carve out, some of the expenses, and you pay those in addition to the base rent. So for purposes of example, let's say a full service gross lease is $1 per square foot per month. For a modified gross lease, it's the same $1 base rent, but you may have additional expenses that are carved out that you have to pay for. A perfect example on the office side is where you have sub-meter units within the office complex itself. So you're paying $1 base rent, plus your electricity costs. Another instance of modified gross is you pay your $1 base rent plus your electricity and your janitorial costs. In a full service gross, everything is included. Modified gross, there are certain carve-outs. The third term is called a triple net lease. Now, by and large, I mean, it's not a hard and fast rule, but most often on industrial properties, you're going to see a triple net lease. Triple net lease means you pay your base rent. Your base rent may still be $1, kind of keeping with our example, but you pay taxes, maintenance, insurance, and utilities. The nets are maintenance, taxes, and insurance. So you are essentially responsible for all the additional expenses in the building. So when you're investigating these different types of properties, you really have to ask those hard questions. In a modified gross lease, what are my additional expenses? In a triple net lease, you at a minimum you're paying maintenance and taxes and insurance, but you need to ask, the landlord, what are our estimated costs for the year, and what do you think my utility costs are going to be? And the interesting thing on a triple net lease is too, your utility costs may differ a lot. If you're running power 24 hours a day because you're doing welding in there, or it's a chroming shop, it's going to be drastically different than if you're an import-export place just stacking boxes and you have a forklift. So those are kind of the three different types of leases that you commonly see for the different asset classes you're dealing with.
Okay, and these aren't hard and fast rules, right? So
No.
There's a little wiggle room in between.
Yeah.
So these are like blanket terms.
Yeah, these are blanket terms, and that's why you really have to, ask the hard questions. Because, if you think about it, there's no one corporation that owns all real estate in the United States. They're owned by people like you and me. They may be, mom and pop business owners that have a vastly different interpretation of, what they think is fair and what they think ought or ought not to be included in a particular lease. So you really have to read the lease language. And especially if you're dealing on more of the mom and pop side and office buildings, they can be absolutely wonderful tenants, but they may have different interpretations. Their leases may be old. If you're dealing on the institutional side, they may have differences as well. So, you just ask those questions up front so you have a real clear conception of, hey, what am I really going to be paying in this lease? And, you don't want to have a gotcha down the road. Those are not hard and fast rules, but they're kind of general rule of thumbs.